point, we'll be in. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our regular city council meeting. We are back on the record. The time right now is 3 minutes after 7. This time I'd like to ask Blaine Evanson from the Laguna Niguel Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to come forward for the invocation. And after that, we'll have the pleasure of seeing Girl Scout Troop 2544 come forward to lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Blaine, if you would. All rise.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be gathered here this evening as a group of government and community leaders, and we're thankful for the opportunity we have to serve. We're thankful for the country we live in and the freedoms we enjoy, and we're particularly thankful for those who have sacrificed so significantly to protect and preserve those freedoms. We're thankful for those who serve in the community, and in particular for the first responders and for our teachers. We ask a blessing on this meeting this evening, that Thy Spirit will guide us in deliberations, that we will be able to understand one another and listen and make those decisions that will help enrich this community and our families. We ask a blessing on our families in our absence, that they will be watched over and protected, and ask that we all travel home safely this evening. We're thankful for the many blessings in our lives and pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Blaine.
Audience attention, color guard advance. Color guard, present the colors. Will the Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and audience please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Audience may be seated.
And girls, if you would stay there, we'll come down and say hello. Be right down. Thank you very much. Do we have any of the Girl Scout leaders with us tonight? They came in. Oh, we got one. Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Yeah, this is great. I appreciate that. I want to give a chance to let you introduce yourself to everyone. I'll give you the mic. You can tell us your first name, where you go to school, and what grade you're in. Okay?
Hi, I'm Madison. I go to Niguel Hills Middle School, and I'm going into 8th grade.
I'm Addison, and I go to Niguel Hills Middle School, and I'm going to 8th grade.
I'm Riley. I go to Niguel Hills Middle School, and I'm going to 8th grade.
I'm Janie. I'm in Niguel Hills, and I'm going into 8th grade.
I'm Cassidy, and I go to Niguel Hills, and I am going into 8th grade.
Thank you much. Well, come on up. You can introduce yourself, too. What grade are you in?
I'm Michelle Grznowski. I'm one of their troop leaders, and I'm very proud of their work tonight.
Well, thank you so much. And on behalf of the city, I want to present you with one of our 30th anniversary challenge coins. Thank you for all the service that you've done for the community. Thank you. And can we give a big round of applause for them? Say thank you. Well done. And we'll get a picture if you guys will. Who's dismissing us tonight?
Color guard dismissed.
Good job. Thank you all. We have a number of presentations tonight. We're very fortunate, and these are some fun ones. So bear with me for just a moment. Our first presentation is to recognize a former board of director, Laurie Davies, for her service to the Orange County Fire Authority. Such a surprise. I want to ask Fire Chief Contreras if he would come up for the presentation. Wow. Ooh. Please, yeah, bring it on up. Let me give you the microphone, and maybe Laura can.
Okay. My husband didn't give anything like this for my anniversary. This is a small token of our appreciation for the many hours that you spent on the board of directors and years. And on behalf of the board of directors and Chief Brian Fennessy, we'd like to present you with that small token.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure being on that board as well.
Thanks very much, Chief. Good job, Lauren. Do you want to? Oh, we got to get a picture. Yeah. Great, Chief, and don't go too far because we've got one more for you. Our next presentation is a proclamation declaring that May through October of 2019 is Drowning Prevention Awareness Month. I want to present that to Chief Contreras, and if you would, please tell us a little bit about drowning prevention.
Thank you, Mayor. This is really about the citizens of Laguna, Niguel, and Orange County. As if you didn't know, accidental death or drowning is the #1 cause of accidental death for those under 5 and actually over 65. So we really, as summer is coming up, the temperatures get hot, there's pools, there's the ocean. We really ask that everybody be aware of people in the water at any time. You can stop by any Orange County Fire Authority fire station and our headquarters and get all the information on CPR classes, how to prevent drownings, and the things that you can do as an individual citizen to help those in need. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Chief. And in Laguna Niguel, of course, safety is always our number one priority, so this is a very important thing, and we're so proud to proclaim May through October as Drowning Prevention Time. Thank you. We'll get another picture. Thank you so much. Well, we have one of those special anniversaries, and we want to invite up some of our friends. The Laguna Niguel Women's Club is commemorating its 50th anniversary this year in Laguna Niguel, which is pretty spectacular, especially since our city is celebrating its 30th anniversary. So I don't know if this was a field or something beforehand, but they had a club, and we're really, really proud of you all. I was going to ask, is Sherry Estrella here? There, come on up, Sherry. And all your club members, if you have others here that'd like to come up, please come on forward. And we have, oh, you've already got the resolution. Fantastic. And I wanted to ask our very own council member, Elaine Genoway, if she would please, to comment and to say thank you and welcome to these folks.
Okay. Come on up, ladies. So the Laguna Niguel Women's Club is celebrating its 50th anniversary in June. The Laguna Niguel Women's Club provided many of the events for the city before the city became a city, and actually had the first community event, which was a park warming, which created La Hermosa Park. And so our members have been very active in the different aspects of community life here in Laguna Niguel for the past 50 years, and will continue on well into the future. So we have some longtime members here. Kathleen Lechner is just about to be almost a 50-year member. I know I myself have been a member for 33 years, so a third of a century, but the purpose of the Laguna Niguel Women's Club is to advance the cultural, philanthropic, and educational interests of the community. So that is something that the members do very well and have a lot of fun doing it and create wonderful friendships. So we appreciate the city recognizing this anniversary.
Well, thank you very much, and on behalf of the city, we present you with this resolution that you can take and hang, and we thank you all for all of your support for the city for all these many years. And I definitely want to get a picture of this. So ladies, if you would, crowd in a little bit. Thank you all so much. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all. Sherry, thank you so much. Congratulations. That's awesome. And our last presentation this evening is a proclamation declaring May as Lupus Awareness Month. And I believe we have Dr. Gila Family. Is she here? Come on up, Gila. Yeah, I will. Welcome. Thank you so much. Do we have the proclamation? If you want to hold this? I can get a holder for you if you want. Okay. We just wanted to say thank you for all you did for lupus being so important. Did you have anything that you wanted to tell us about? Please let me hold the. Okay.
Because it's a very unknown disease. I just wrote some of the facts about the disease. It is a chronic autoimmune disorder. It is not infectious, it is not contagious, and it's not cancerous. 90% of people who have lupus are women. The average age between the ages of 15 and 45, but anybody in terms of seniors and young children could get it too. 25% of people who have lupus were diagnosed before the age of 18. Before puberty, there are as many boys and girls who have it, but after puberty, the number of girls diagnosed goes exponentially up. There is no cure, but the sooner the better it can be controlled. There is a need for research and funding the research. It's difficult to diagnose because the symptoms of lupus can mimic other diseases, and then the patient will have this disease, this symptom today, and then another symptom another day, and it will stay for a while and then change to something else. So it's very difficult to diagnose. On the average, some 10 years ago, statistics showed that it took 7 years with symptoms before a patient was diagnosed. Now, I think it's closer to 4 years. 1.5 million Americans have it, but it's the least recognized of major diseases. 2/3 of Americans haven't heard about it. They don't know what lupus is. More people have lupus than the combination of AIDS, cerebral palsy, and multiple sclerosis put together. African American women are 3 times more likely to get it than Caucasian women, and also more Hispanics and Latinos, Asians, and Native Americans are likely to get it than Caucasian people. The symptoms of lupus can be very severe. It includes a debilitating kind of fatigue. If you can imagine the worst fatigue of your life, multiply that by at least 10, 20 times, and that's how they feel. And they have debilitating pain. So that looks like fibromyalgia, but it's actually lupus. So lupus is the leading cause of kidney disease and stroke and premature cardiovascular disease. People who have lupus between the ages of 35 and 45 to 50, they have a 50% chance of having a cardiac event or a stroke, and many of them fatal. So it is difficult. I'm sure you have heard of Selena Gomez. She had lupus. She had to have a kidney transplant. You have heard of Kristen Johnson, the actress who played in Third Rock from the Sun. She has lupus. And even though these are people who have access to the absolute best medical care, it took a few years before they got diagnosed. So we need to spread the awareness. And on behalf of Lupus LA, I'm very grateful to have this proclamation. And I really commend everybody at the Laguna Niguel City Hall to do that. It's a great thing. I just want to say Lupus LA does 3 kinds of things. It's a completely non-profit. Everybody is a volunteer, except one person. They fund research. They fund people who have the disease and all of a sudden they can't make money and they need money for care. They provide them with emergency funds. And they also create awareness. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Do you want to get a picture? Okay, good. Let's get a picture for you. Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Family. That is our last one here. I did want to note, we do have on our agenda, we have a presentation we'll be giving to Debbie from the Chamber to celebrate her 30th anniversary there and her retirement. We're going to be presenting that to her at the upcoming event for that, so just wanted to make a note of it. But that we're done and we can return to the dais. So thank you. All right, that concludes our presentation. I will now open up public communications. So any person wishing to address the City Council will need to complete and present a gold color request to speak form, and you can give that to our City Clerk, Eileen Gomez. The forms are available on the counter that's located near the door at the back of the council chambers. Please be aware that the time limit will be 3 minutes for each person to speak. To allow equal time for speakers, minutes may not be given to another speaker. You may have another person read any written statement you might have. City Clerk Gomez, I have one on the regular and I have several for an agenda item. Are there any further? Okay, good. Okay, at this time, our first public speaker is Elaine Rutkowski. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Elaine Rutkowski, and I have been a resident of Laguna Niguel for 33 years. I had the privilege to serve on the Public Safety Committee for 2 full terms and was a member for half a term when the council made the decision to disband the committee. Both of my children attended elementary, middle, and high schools at our local public schools. I have come here tonight to follow up on the letters, emails, photos, and packets of information that I delivered to the mayor, the chief of police, several council members, Laurie, Davies, and Elaine Genoway, and members of the Capo USD School Board. To date, I have not received any acknowledgement for the concerns I expressed regarding the public safety during the game played by senior class members at Aliso Niguel High School throughout our neighborhoods during this past spring semester. For those of you who haven't heard of this game, it is called Senior Assassins. To contemplate the plethora of dangerous outcomes that this game invites, it has kept me awake at night. I had the experience twice in the recent weeks as I left for my very, very early morning run to observe the hooded, stalking persons clearly hiding some sort of weapon inside their clothing as they crouched behind my neighbors' cars and bushes. This filled me with fear, both for those dressed as the assassins and for anyone who would happen upon them and decide to defend themselves. As I detailed in my letters to you, I'm a public health nurse and an educator. During this time of national epidemics of murders in schools, workplaces, churches, youth-filled bars, concerts, and neighborhoods like Isla Vista, we adults have an obligation to show courage and teach our teenagers about the moral responsibility of respecting life. This game among the members of our high school seniors is a product, I think, of adults being cowards and of being afraid to say no to the youth who entrusted them to educate and raise them with morals and values. It's too late for the class of 2019. They're leaving on Thursday. In my letters to you, I offer to help orchestrate an alternate activity for the 2020 senior class at Aliso Niguel High School. I'm waiting for a response to my offer. I decided not to teach this summer in an effort to focus on communicating about this subject. I was happy to hear the mayor say that safety is our #1 priority a few moments ago. That fills me with hope. And I look forward to your ideas and support as we end this current school year and enter the next one in a few weeks ahead.
Great. Thank you very much. Just as a point to note, and we can't have a discussion on it, but I will let you know I did have discussions with not only the superintendent of schools, but our local trustees for both the Capital Unified School District, as well as the principals for the local high schools regarding this issue. And that was also through our city manager at the time. So as it did lead, and I wanted to say thank you for bringing it to our attention, did lead to ample discussions behind the scenes on all of that. So thank you very much. Unless we have any other requests to speak? Okay, public communications are now closed. We will move on to our consent calendar, which is items 1 through 14. Just a note of order that we are voting on the current version of item number 3 that's provided in our red folders, just to make sure that the council has seen that. And let me know if there are any items that you'd like to pull. Councilmember Menegar? None? None? Any items to be pulled?
8 and 10.
8 and 10, okay. Do I have a motion on the
I make
balance?
the motion to move.
Second.
Very good. So motion's made by Councilman Minigar to approve, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Davies. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Carries unanimously. Let's move to item number 8 on the consent calendar, which is the landscaping, shine illumination, cafe lighting at Sea Country Senior Center.
Okay.
Councilwoman Raines.
I just have a question about this. I appreciate the reason for wanting to put the cafe lighting in. We've discussed having a fee study done to reassess our fees. Is there any reason we couldn't put this off until that's complete so that we're not spending more money right now?
No, there's no reason we can't hold it off. It's just something that the money, if I understand correctly, cannot be rolled over to the next fiscal year. So we won't have it for the next fiscal year to purchase the lights unless we have an agreement in place prior to the end of the fiscal year.
Is that correct? Okay, well then in that case, I'll just move the item to be done now. Thank you.
Okay, so moved by Councilwoman Raines, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Davies. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 10, which is resolution number 2019-1285 regarding application for 2019 Environmental Cleanup Tier 1 Grant Program. Councilwoman Raines.
That sounds like so complicated, doesn't
It
it?
is. Good
I know,
luck.
Jackie, you had spoken about the catch basins, and I had sent you some questions regarding it. So I was just wanting to verify that you're going to do 138 catch basins in 2019, 2020, or that you're going to take 2 years to do that?
It is expected that the construction will initiate in fiscal year 1920, and just depending on the timing of the grant funds from the OCTA, it'll depend on when it completes, if it finishes by June 30 or carries over a little bit into the next fiscal year.
And so we're to give a matching fund of $69,574.31. Is that our matching?
Yes, that was the match that was proposed in the application.
But we're not sure if we'll get the funds. Is that what you're proposing?
It is a competitive grant,
Okay.
and we did put together an application that we feel will likely get funded.
Okay.
And part of it is including the matching funds from the city.
So it is possible if we didn't get the matching funds or the grant funds that we wouldn't do it?
This project, I would still propose that we fund, and I'd have to come back to the council with a plan for that. This program removes trash from our stormwater, from our streets, and is part of our overall program to comply with the state mandates for trash reduction.
Okay, thank you. So you would come back if you didn't get the funding?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Councilwoman Raines, seconded by Councilwoman Genoway. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Votes? Okay. Passes unanimously. So thank you very much for that. That is all of our consent calendar items. Our first discussion item is Public Works item number 1 regarding the approval of plans and speculations for the bus shelter and trolley stop project, which is cash contract 1902. Public Works Director Scott, this is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Jennings. Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, the item before you this evening is approval of plans and specifications and authorization to advertise the bus shelter and trolley stop project for construction bids. In May of 2018, the City Council approved the concept design for the new bus shelters. The bus shelter design was intended to complement the ongoing monument sign and decorative elements project currently under construction. The name of the project includes trolley stops. However, the trolley program isn't planned for implementation until next summer. It is anticipated the initial trolley program will be limited in its routing, so the design of the bus shelter includes a bracket to add trolley signs at a later date as routes are expanded. This design feature will be further described in the PowerPoint presentation. Joining us this evening are the design architects Larry Ryan and Andy Steen of RJM, and they will be providing a brief presentation and overview of the project design and project features.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. It's our honor to be here tonight before you. The staff report overviewed that the concept was approved a year ago. We've been working on this for 2 years to get to that concept level. So tonight we've got a 2-year anticipation and excitement level built up. So I'm going to take you through the journey here. We developed a series of concepts, and what you see here is a photo simulation of a shelter in the actual setting that it would be placed. What we are doing is replacing the existing shelters. There are 37 of these existing shelters throughout the community that are, with this project, destined to be removed. Some of these occur on outdated lines that are no longer serving the community. So with the removal of 37, we're going to be installing 28 new shelters. This shows the routes of the 4 OCTA routes with their stops and their locations throughout the community. The new shelter design is quite a bit different than the existing structures, more of a modern, iconic look, and there have been improvements to discourage loitering or undesirable presence in the shelters. For instance, you'll see the seats are solid, custom created concrete modules that do not allow people to shelter underneath the benches themselves, nor do they allow for people to lay on the benches. Rather, they're allowing people to sit and wait in a more of a prescribed, obvious manner. The idea is to have these bus shelters be an extension of the monumentation that the city has already approved, with the materials, the colors, so that you're basically expanding your brand through all of the street furniture, including your monuments and signage throughout the community, to these bus shelters. I'm going to back up there. You'll notice that this is a full-size shelter, and by that I mean the width. And this is in relationship to the varying conditions that occur throughout the community. The next one I'm going to show you is what we refer to as the half shelter. It's a narrower version of that, but it allows it to fit in tighter site constraints along the public right-of-way. But it still has the same elements for the signage. And I might point out in the left image, you can see the trolley icon, and that final icon has not been fully resolved yet, but you can see how it would be placed, and would be added on a bracket that could be added or removed if the trolley lines, change. Okay, so you have a lot of flexibility. Here's the monument sign, and you can see the similarity with the materials, the finish, the stonework, as well as the steel finish on the main body of the sign. I mentioned the seating. These are custom pieces that are manufactured. The face is a textured concrete like you would see on a typical enriched pavement kind of detail, and the top of the seat is smooth. It has a complementary trash receptacle that can either be a single opening, or it can have a double opening for recyclable materials and trash alike. Here's another simulation of the full shelter at a location. Here's a half shelter. This is the funding sources that are envisioned. Fiscal year 18-19, general fund 357, air quality management fund of 550,000. And the proposed 2019-20 air quality management fund of 40,000, bringing the total to 947,000. We've done the cost estimates based on working with sign fabricators and applied that throughout the city, and the approximate cost is $30,000 to $35,000. And one of the swings is not really understanding where the economy of scale is going to come in when contractors are bidding on this. So that's a little bit of a variable that we'll just want to be aware of. The other part of this project is improving the shelter or stop locations that don't have shelters, as depicted in this photograph here, where there's simply a bench and a trash receptacle. What we're going to do is replace the bench and the trash receptacle with one of the following options. We have two here to show you. This is the vocabulary that would be, identical to what's being proposed under the shelters as an option. And the other option is to use the furniture vocabulary, much like you have here at City Hall. Okay? That completes the presentation, and I'm available here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for that, Larry. In addition to approving the final design for the bus shelter and trolley stop project, also requested this evening is approval of an amendment to the RJM contract in the amount of $14,750. This will cover the design of 8 locations that were not included in their original contract for a total of 28 stop locations along the OCTA bus routes. Additionally, RJM will be providing material and submittal reviews during construction to ensure all materials comply with the final selection of the ad hoc committee. As described in the agenda report and discussed in the PowerPoint, it is also requested that the City Council provide direction to staff regarding the existing pink-colored benches. Included as an option in tonight's project approval, the existing 34 benches can be removed and replaced with either the cube seating option or more traditional metal benches depicted in the PowerPoint. The work to remove the pink concrete benches was not part of the overall bus shelter and trolley stop original project scope and is only an option for the council consideration. The estimated cost to address removal and replacement of the pink benches depends on which replacement option is selected. The work can be added to the project for bidding and be completed at the same time the bus shelter and trolley stop project is constructed. The City Council should note that the existing bus shelters contain advertising, which will no longer be part of the new bus shelter and trolley stop project. Staff will need to negotiate with Clear Channel to terminate the agreement and proceed with removal of the existing shelters. Staff recommends this evening that the City Council approve the plans and specifications for the bus shelter and trolley stop project, cash contract number 19-02. Authorize staff to advertise the project for bids. Approve the First Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement with RJM Design Group for a not to exceed amount of $14,750. Authorize the interim city manager to execute the agreement for professional services with RJM. Approve an option for the removal and replacement of the existing benches. And direct staff to negotiate terms for termination of the existing bus shelter agreement with Clear Channel. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Director Scott, thank you so much. I would note this is the culmination, as we heard, of several years' worth of effort. I was on the ad hoc committee with Councilman Menegar when we originally came up with these designs, and it is very good to see them brought back in front of the council. A year later, we've got them sorted out. Some of the delay, I know, was attributable to trying to get the bus lines right, because OCTA was changing those, and we definitely did not want to overspend on this project or put in bus stops where they weren't needed. A lot of effort went into that with OCTA to get the bus lines right. We also were taking a hard look at the OC Flex program, which eliminates some of the need for bus stops and things like that, which was very helpful. So this is a very much pared down, efficient use of this effort, which was probably a lot more limited in scope than was originally contemplated. So I appreciate all the efforts on that. I'm hoping the economies of scale hit in the 20s on the bus stops that are needed. It is my recommendation, and we can go through the rest of the council and hear what their discussion is. It is my recommendation that we approve this, especially on the addition of the pink benches and those things. The picture that was shown here, that has to be the nicest one in town because most of them don't look that nice. Many of the stickers are missing off of those, and they are discolored. They've been out there for quite a while, and that's just something that as you drive around, I encourage you to look at the new bus stop or the old bus stops, and you won't be able to stop looking at them because they don't match the rest of the things that are around them. They have done very well for us through time, but they've grown tired and they've worn out. My understanding on the contract with Clear Channel was is that it was month to month, and that there really wasn't much of a termination process on that, and that the contract itself had lapsed for a while. So we should be on fairly good footing unless you have something different on that.
My reading of the contract is it's an evergreen, but my experience with Clear Channel is the negotiation process is pretty straightforward.
Okay, that's good. And yeah, the decision was made, and I'll let Councilman Niguel elaborate if he wants to, whether or not it's okay or we really wanted to have that type of advertising on our bus stops. We didn't have any control over that. It just sort of showed up, and that's what it was. And the consensus was, and the discussion last year on council was that this was a better way to go and is more fitting. So let me open this up to council comments and see if we have any questions, discussions. Councilman Minigar.
Thank you. Well, I'm very pleased after a couple of years this project can finally come to the final point that the bus shelter and trolley stop project becomes a reality that is going to beautify the city and rejuvenate all the major arterials within the city. And we've gone through so many different iterations. So what you see, what has been proposed, and the whole plan, specs, and estimations happens to be the best possible package for our great city. So
great. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem Davies.
Thank you. Just two. One in regards to the bus advertisement. I would prefer to take it off. I think to me, when we talk about safety, it's a distraction. The whole idea is for you to turn your eyes off the road onto the advertisement, and I'd rather keep the eyes on the road. In regards to the benches, I personally like the one like we do have in City Hall, especially if there's any ADA or anyone has an injury, because sometimes you need those handles to be able to sit down and to actually get yourself back up, where this square, you know, it's not that easy just to sit down like that. I think it helps them. And it has a back too in case they need support while they're waiting.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I definitely concur in that. Anything else? Councilor Raines?
No.
Do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to see this finally come forward because I know how long the mayor and Councilman Minigar have been working on this. They look beautiful, and I'm glad to see that the advertisements are down because that created a distraction, also visual noise when you're driving through our city. And now we can see through the shelter, and really, our city is beautiful. We can see the greenery on the other side. Though when I looked at the seating choices, I preferred the stone cubes because I thought it was a consistent look with the bus shelters and also easier on maintenance and a much cleaner look. So I prefer that, though Mayor Pro Tem did make some good points about being able to get yourself up and out of the seat. So I don't know, is there maybe a third option we could see that would look like these stone cubes, but maybe make it a little bit easier for someone to get out of their seat?
Well,
just
to be clear, the stone cubes are, the bus shelters as designed are only contemplating stone cubes.
Right, I know.
The
This
other
is
one
just
is
to replace the benches.
The benches, okay,
Yes.
good.
Yeah, no, I understood that, and that's why I liked the stone cubes, because it would be a consistent look throughout the city. Plus, I think they look fresher and newer and would be easier to maintain and look clean and maybe just hose down.
Yeah, maybe. Any other,
Okay,
Councilman Raines?
so I do have some clarifying questions. So the first one is, what is the life cycle on the cubes versus the benches in first? So I'll let you answer that.
If I misspeak, I'd like to ask Larry maybe to clarify, but the existing shelters out there are 30 years old and are not made with the same quality and durable materials that we have selected for this shelter, so I would anticipate a minimum of a 30-year life cycle from the new project.
Okay, and then the maintenance of them would be done by who?
Once the old shelters are removed and the new shelters are installed, the city's street maintenance contractor, MCE, would assume that responsibility as part of their regular street maintenance responsibilities in their contract.
Okay, and then I guess my other question is, between the two, the cube and the bench, I do like the bench, and I agree with both Council Member Genoway and Mayor Pro Tem Davies that they both offer something nice. So the clarifying thing is where the benches are going to be, are those stops for the buses also, or are they just benches that we're putting in our city? Do you know the answer?
If I could refer you over to Exhibit B in the staff report. It shows a layout of the benches around the city, which ones are proposed to be replaced and which ones will simply be removed, and then also that overlays with the OCTA bus routes. The only ones that would be permanently removed and not replaced would be ones that are no longer served by an OCTA bus.
So then they are going to be serving a stop of some sort.
Yes.
And then is there an additional cost for, I know you said you're going to put like a plaque where the stations are for the trolley. Is there going to be an additional cost, or is the cost covered in what you're giving us right here today?
The trolley stops grant application that staff will be submitting to OCTA does allow for inclusion of those signs as part of the grant funding from OCTA. It'll be part of that application and part of that project.
Okay, well then in that case, the only question is, do we do the bench or do we do the cube?
Yeah, and thank you for those clarifying things. One thing that I do note is that there are many places where the Capital Unified school buses stop. They're not bus stops for us, but they do also have places for benches and trash cans in theirs too. So there's a little bit of overlap, and we don't see that map on here, but they are often the same. With respect to the benches versus the cubes, I completely embrace the argument. My preference, I think, is the bench. For the reasons stated. The ones that we have at City Hall look very nice, and they are seemingly durable, and if durability is fungible in that regard, I think they're probably better suited to have a bench sitting there. You often find people waiting a little bit longer for those outer route seats, so perhaps those are, maybe that's a more comfortable place to sit. I don't know, but I guess my preference is bench. So.
I have no issues with the benches.
Oh, okay, so we are flush with benches. Do you have any other comments on that?
Actually, I do have a question then
Go
with
ahead.
that, especially since there isn't any ceiling or awning or any over those. Does one get hotter than the other? So perhaps if, you know, it's summertime and it's heat out there and you're going to sit down?
Probably a negligible amount. The metal bench that's in the project proposed is often used throughout our parks as well. We don't really get any complaints about them getting hot.
I was just trying to get a determination on everything here, so, because it really is. I mean, I love the consistency. Is it possible when we look at that picture that the gray that we're using on the bus stand, that the bench could at least be that color in matching that, so at least throughout there you still have that gray?
Actually, that gray isn't going to be that gray. It's more of a taupe color, and we can try to match that taupe color with the, if you opt to go to the more traditional bench to match that color.
And there's consistency in color across the board.
I think that's fine. I'd be inclined to ask RJM if you could bring a sample back. Maybe we can see it before we go to production on the bench.
Sure.
But if that's the consensus. But Councilwoman Genoway had another comment.
On the, with the maintenance of the benches, is that going to increase the cost of our MCE contract?
The existing MCE contract is adequately staffed and already covers the cost of the maintenance for these shelters.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to make a motion.
Oh, look at that motion. Okay, Councilmember
Yes.
Councilmember Minigar
Finally
makes the motion, and I'm going to exercise my privilege, and I'll second it as well. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sounds unanimous, so we'll take that as, I thank everyone for all their efforts, and RJM, thank you very much for all your efforts over the last couple of years. We look forward to seeing them in town, so thank you very much. You'll have those installed by the end of the summer, right? Okay, good job. All right, we're our last discussion item is no small item at all. It's finance item number 1 regarding the adoption of the proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 city budget and 5-year capital improvement plan programs, a resolution establishing the appropriation limit for the city of Laguna, Niguel for fiscal year 2019-2020, a resolution amending the salary schedules and financial reserve policy. And tonight, that'll be covered by Finance Director Erlinson. So to provide us with a staff report. Steve, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is my honor to present to you the proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-20 and all related actions necessary to implement the budget. The budget reflects your priorities of commitment to enhance the quality of life for all community members in the city. The budget provides for strategic core services that strengthen neighborhoods while prioritizing public safety and capital investments in our park amenities and infrastructure. The preparation of this budget started in early spring with the Finance Department calculating and forecasting our future revenue and expenditures, along with preparing packets for each city department. Next, each operating department identified their resource needs, achievements, initiatives, and key performance indicators. From that first draft of the proposed budget was created. Then budget hearings were held with the city manager, myself, and each department, resulting in the second draft of the proposed budget. The second draft was made public and presented at the budget workshop, which was held on May 14th of 2019, where you had the opportunity to hear from each of the department heads. The workshop entailed a detailed presentation and robust discussion lasting nearly 4 hours. Direction and input received at the workshop has been incorporated in the proposed budget before you tonight. Tonight's presentation will be a citywide focus. The total proposed budget before you tonight is a $57.9 million funding services, programs, and capital projects for the benefit of Laguna Niguel residents and business owners. The operating portion of the budget is $45.4 million, which represents a 6% increase from the current year's operating budget. The majority of the increase is related to an increase in the sheriff's contract, state-mandated environmental mitigation monitoring requirements, and one-time capital outlay items. The proposed one-year capital improvement budget is $12.5 million, representing a substantial commitment to capital projects over the upcoming year. Taking a closer look at the $45.4 million proposed operating budget, here is a breakdown by department. As you can see, the largest component is our proposed funding for police services, representing approximately 37% of the budget. The next largest component is for our Public Works Department, which represents roughly 30% of the operating budget, followed by Parks and Rec at 13%, then your general government functions, which are comprised of the city attorney, city clerk, administration, and finance departments at 11%, and lastly, community development at 9%. Moving to the capital improvement portion, the $12.5 million proposed budget is primarily for the planned Crown Valley Community Park improvements, where the new community center is currently being constructed. The next largest investment is for our streets and roads, with many projects planned for medians, resurfacing, and bus shelters. For a detailed listing of all projects, I would refer you to pages 182 through 197 in the budget document. The funding sources for the proposed $57.9 million budget are primarily from our city's general fund at 74%. The general fund is used to account for revenues that are not specifically designated to be accounted for by any other fund and are not legally restricted as to use. The second largest source of funding at 18% will come from the amounts that were prudently set aside to specifically fund capital improvements. As you can see, our other sources of funding are relatively small, but include gas tax, Measure M2 funding, air quality funds, and CDBG, along with various other sources. So as you can see from the funding sources, preserving and enhancing our general fund is vital as it serves as our primary source of funding. Taking a closer look at our major general revenue streams, our largest revenue stream is property tax revenue. The city receives from the county a share of the 1% basic levy As you can see from the first two columns, we are anticipating growth in this revenue stream from the current year, represented in dark blue, to the proposed year in lighter blue. The projected increase of 2.3% is based on increases in assessed valuation, making our proposed property tax revenue approximately $16.5 million. The next columns represent our sales tax revenue, of which the city's share is 1% of the purchase price of tangible items. Our projections for this revenue stream anticipate a slight decrease of $79,000 from the current year based on revenue trends, but we will actively monitor this throughout the year. Finally, the third largest revenue item is our property tax in lieu of vehicle license fees, in which we are anticipating an increase of approximately 2.5%, which equates to $157,000. While we only appropriate for a single fiscal year, the city engages in capital improvement planning beyond the one-year horizon, as reflected in detail in the 5-year CIP. This slide displays the outlying year's planned use of resources. The strategic planning provides better management over large projects, as well as routine replacements, and establishes accountability on the part of the project managers. As mentioned earlier, as a result of the workshop, all requested follow-ups have been completed and include enhanced and modified various departmental key performance indicators, an additional appropriation of $25,000 to prepare a request for proposals for a citywide comprehensive fee study, additional appropriations of $75,000 in the Community Development Department operating budget related to community preservation operations, and finally, the elimination of the fiscal year 1920 proposed appropriation of $250,000 for the outdoor fitness areas project. Staff recently conducted an organizational review of resource allocations with the objective of determining an enhanced model of delivering services to the community and the city organization. This assessment determined that the Public Works Department is in need of a contracts administrator position to provide oversight and prepare phases of contracts, interact with contractors, and resolve contract performance issues. The Public Works Department also determined that it no longer requires one vacant Public Works Engineering Technician position. As such, staff is proposing reclassifying the one vacant Public Works Engineering Technician position to the new position of Contracts Administrator. In addition, the Public Works Department is in need of an additional maintenance worker position to maintain the new Crown Valley Park Community Center when that comes online. With the new Crown Valley Community Park Center becoming operational this coming fiscal year, the Parks and Recreation Department is in need of 3 additional recreation coordinator positions as a result of anticipated programming consistent with the nature of the building. One recreation coordinator position will become effective July 5th of 2019, while the other 2 recreation coordinator positions will become effective on January 3rd, 2020, closer to the opening of the building. Furthermore, it is recommended that the Administration Department eliminate one IT network administrator position that is no longer needed as part of the city's IT operations. As required by the California Constitution, all cities must establish a maximum limit for appropriations at the beginning of each fiscal year. This limit is referred to as the GAN limit and is calculated by a formula. As you can see, our proposed appropriations amount is significantly below the legal limit. Beginning in 2004, the city leaders adopted a financial reserve policy which sets forth the requirements for a number of different reserves, such as a contingency reserve, a compensated absences reserve, other post-employment benefits reserve, and a reserve for pre-funding capital assets and infrastructure replacement. The policy is reviewed annually, and at this time, staff is proposing one revision to the city financial reserves policy for fiscal year 1920, which entails suspending future funding to the reserve for Crown Valley Community Park Master Plan improvements as a result of the anticipated completion of the Crowd Valley Community Building during fiscal year 1920. As such, staff is recommending that we reinstitute funding of the Reserve for Capital Assets and Infrastructure Replacement. In summary, the proposed 2019-20 city budget maintains all current programs and service levels while providing a significant investment in the city's capital assets. We, as staff, thank you for your leadership on the development of the budget and recommend that you take the necessary actions listed to approve and ensure implementation of the proposed budget. Thank you.
Great, Steve. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. I'm sure we'll have questions and comments and things. I want to take this opportunity, however, to go to our public comments. We have a few of those. The first request to speak on this agenda item is for Hazel Fenn. Ms. Fenn, thank you very much. Welcome. You have 3 minutes. If you would, please state your name and address for us.
Okay. So, good evening, Mayor Jennings and council members. My name is Hazel Fenn. I reside at 2991 Happy Sparrow Lane in Laguna, Niguel. I have owned this property for 19 years and raised my children in this lovely city. So thank you all for that. I would just like to highlight the funds that have been set aside for the adapted municipal park for special needs and for seniors with mobility issues and things. I currently work with seniors and have done for 15 years, and I'm currently studying gerontology at Saddleback College in the evening. And the greatest challenge our seniors have is isolation. So I would really, really like the funds that have been set aside for this park to be used for that. Our demographic, it's shifting. We have more and more seniors and less children in the community, and I really feel that this is a need going forward in our city to have our seniors have access to the beautiful greenery that we have. So that is my first comment. My second thing I would like to mention is I've had a dog for 16 years, and the current dog park is just really quite sad. And I would prefer that we redid or did some maintenance and upgraded the existing dog park than create a new one somewhere else. So thank you. That is my...
Thanks, Ms. Fenn. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is Patty Mouton. Patty?
Thank you.
Welcome to City Hall. Please state your name and address.
Sure. My name is Patty Barnett Mouton. I reside at 29592 Pelican Way in Laguna Niguel, and I've been a resident of the city for 31 years. So good evening, Mayor Jennings and City Council members. I truly enjoyed the State of the City event earlier today, and I thank you, Mayor Jennings, for the thoughtful and inspiring look to the future of Laguna Niguel. I've worked in older adult services for more than 20 years and in healthcare for 40 years, and I'm actively engaged in a variety of county, statewide, and federal initiatives and programs that enhance the quality of life for older adults. There's a few things I know for sure. The elected leadership of Laguna Niguel is prudent, fiscally responsible, and hopefully responsive to the needs and the desires of residents and our changing demographic. In anticipating the needs of our maturing population, the previous City Council researched specially adapted municipal parks, looked at programs from all over the world to accommodate not only older adults, but individuals with developmental and other mobility issues, and initiated a work group to begin to explore successful park adaptation with equipment which would safely encourage increased outdoor activity. At the same time, as is the custom of our city, funds were set aside as part of a planned savings to ensure that when the project was fully designed and approved, it could be executed without debt. It's my understanding that that $250,000 was earmarked for this expressed purpose, with a plan to set aside like amounts in order to fully fund the project before it was underway. I see from tonight's slides that that money is now being eliminated from the budget. I know that there have been divergent plans talking about having the regional park in the county do something similar. I very respectfully suggest that that would be a very protracted process with limited opportunities for success. Many, many reasons why it would not work at the regional park. I want to be certain that this very important project continues to be supported and doesn't just get eliminated, and that the funds that were initially set aside after a great deal of deliberation and study be preserved for this purpose. I thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I also know for sure that Laguna Niguel does not need 2 dog parks. And that we need to improve the one we have or close it entirely, use it for a different purpose, and then establish a new dog park. Aliso Viejo has a great one that they just opened. I don't know for sure, but I'm hopeful that the council members will recognize that a park adapted for older adults and those with mobility issues will not be serving a special interest group, but rather be serving the fastest growing demographic in our community. And many of those people vote. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mouton. Our next speaker is Helen DePani. Helen, welcome back.
Well,
Good to
thank
see you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for your service to this extraordinary city.
Your name and
My
address.
name is Helen DePani. I live at 13 Byron Close. As a 27-year resident of Laguna Niguel, I have been proud to and confident regarding the prudent utilization of our city's funds. Each year, we have been able to maintain a debt-free status. The growth and quality of life here in Laguna Niguel remains impressive. As we move in these turbulent times, my concern is that we are spending too aggressively. The necessity of completing the Crown Valley Community Center is obvious, but ensuring the funds are available for unexpected items and/or events which could arrive is essential before beginning new projects. The reserve in our budget should be increasing, not decreasing. We should be well prepared to provide for what would be necessary in the case of catastrophic occurrences. We have been fortunate that, so far, we have not been subjected to the chaos happening throughout California. However, we must remain prepared. Therefore, a significant budget reserve is imperative in order to maintain the security of a debt-free city. Thank you.
Great, Helen. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Our last speaker is Steve Wanamaker. Steve, welcome. Just as an aside, it is so fantastic to see you in City Council chambers. So good to see you, bud.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Let's move.
Name and address, please.
My name's Steve Wanamaker, and I'm at 28351 Via Alphonse, and I've been a resident of Laguna Niguel for 18 years. I wasn't aware that I was supposed to bring my winter coat to be in the chambers tonight.
I swear it's in the budget someplace.
Well, good evening, Mayor Jennings, council members. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm also speaking on behalf of our seniors here in Laguna Niguel. As you know, Laguna Niguel is home to a growing population of older adults, many of which live at home. Many live with family. Others live in assisted living communities like Crestovia and Aegis, and many live in the residential care communities that are throughout the city. As a certified senior advisor, it's my privilege to work with older adults and their families on a daily basis. And it's all too common that their opportunities to enjoy our wonderful outdoor spaces here in Laguna Niguel are limited by their own mobility. And isolation, again, is really the most serious problem that's facing our seniors throughout California and Orange County and in Laguna Niguel as well. Having an outdoor space that meets their physical needs really would help keep the world from shrinking in another significant way. So seniors' worlds are shrinking in a lot of different ways, and having limited outdoor spaces is certainly one of those ways. It is my understanding that a previous city council set aside funds to pay for an accessible outdoor space, whether that be a park or some other means, and other disabled residents to enjoy as well. And it's my request that you preserve these funds for this purpose for our seniors and other developmentally disabled adults. Thank you very much.
Great, Steve. Thank you so much. All right, that closes public communications. We will now move on to council comments regarding the proposed budget. Mayor Pro Tem Davies.
Thank you. I just want to touch base, and I appreciate everyone coming in regards to the dog park. Just in regards to any misunderstanding, that basically what we're doing is a feasibility study, and we could even have Director Scott discuss that, but we're looking into one park. No one was looking for two parks in this city. There's no reason for two parks right now. What we're going to do is do the right thing, do a feasibility study on what we have existing, see how we can make it better, because it's not. It's not up to our standards. And if you go on Facebook, you'll see a lot of reasons people don't use it because of that. So that's what we're doing for that. So there's not going to be, I don't think any of us were planning on two dog parks. That's not what we're looking for. But we're looking at the one we have, just like anyone else would do, to see, can we use that? Can we make it better? And if not, then what would be our next option? And I'm just going to have Director Scott talk a little bit about a feasibility study and the reason why, and sometimes people think that the cost is high, but that's what the cost is out there. And you need to do things like this before you actually do go put a lot of money into something and then find out that maybe environmentally it's not working, the soil isn't right. So I'm just going to let her touch base with this, but I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Davies. The current effort through the Public Works Department is the conceptual design phase, looking at the existing dog park only. This phase is necessary to define the scope and budget for the improvements that the community is requesting for the existing dog park. The next step would be to take a conceptual plan, put it into final design once approved by the City Council, and once the final design is done, then we can put it out for bid and get the improvements constructed.
Great, thank you very much. Councilman Raines. That's why I called on you.
This is a very interesting time in our city's history. Our city has planned and done amazing things, and for those of you who are at our State of the City today, you'll know that we do plan ahead and we do save. So in response to the I believe $250,000 that has been taken out of this year's budget, there is $357 still allocated in savings and reserves for an all ages fitness parks, senior park. We're just taking that opportunity right now to not do that this year because we've had some other major expenses, capital improvements with the Tier 3 park. But our city's financial policy is to have a 50% reserve for economic uncertainty of our general operating budget. So $45.4 million is what I think Director Erlandson alluded to. So half of that would be something that we are, by policy, ethically required, to do. And I believe that all of our colleagues and our predecessors took that seriously. So with that being said, that's one of the things. The other thing is this budget is unique in the sense that this is the first time the budgetary practices that we normally use, coupled with our financial reserve policy, do not fully adhere to those guidelines. So we're at a very interesting point where we need to look at some of the expenditures. We need to put them off for a year. We need to get Crown Valley Park Community Center built and done prior to actually continuing to spend this money that we have before us. So I've asked for, you all have a red folder here, and there's some suggestions that I've actually recommended in addition to the $250,000 that we look at. And including and taking out of this current budget, because right now when you look at the balance sheet, it looks like we have a balanced budget, and we do, but if you look at our operating budget from, if you'll bear with me, I'll give you my notes, page 182 is 33,257,000, and then if you look on page, here we go, on the main page here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep my pages straight. There's so many of them, and we have to flip them back and forth, but that's what our operating budget has been. If you add that into the current one of 43 million, you look down here on page 47, where it says our amended budget is 94 million. We're actually spending $3 million more. 2 million for capital improvements and $1 million for operating expenses. So I want to discuss that and look at some capital improvements and some operating expenses that we can kind of hold back on, and then bring us to a more even keel here. So we're kind of putting the brakes on, because we're only bringing a 1% revenue, but we're spending anywhere from 4 to 8% more in this fiscal budget. So it's not saying we're stopping doing things, it's just saying we need to take a break. And we're, you know, sometimes you're going too fast, you got to put your brakes on, or Lieutenant McDaniels is going to pull you over. So that's what I'm asking, and I'm recommending. So one of the recommendations, yeah, did you like that analogy? It was true. So I'm recommending that we hold off on doing a few things that were proposed in the capital improvement project, one being the resurfacing of the Crown Valley soccer fields for the 1 year. The other one being replacing the restrooms, renovating the restrooms at Sea Country Senior Community Center. And the last one being holding off on the study for the walls. That would bring us up to a little over $1 million, including the 250 for the parks, for the all ages park. And that would kind of balance us, bring us down a little bit. We're still spending more. We're still spending about 4% more, but at least this way we're kind of putting the brakes on some things. So these are kind of my thoughts and recommendations on how we go about this, and that way we can continue to keep our budget surplus. It's going to be really interesting for our residents when you go look at our money next year after the Crown Valley Park Community Center is built. You're going to say, oh, it's beautiful, but then you're going to look on our balance sheet and you're going to see it go from 71 million to about 42 million. You're going to go, what happened to all that money? Well, what happened to it is we used it to do all these things, and everybody has things that they want, but we're going to be spending it, and so we need to kind of put the brakes on. So that's my recommendation on capital improvements. And then the other one on operating expense is doing a delay on some of the hiring that we're going to do. We have a $7 million pension unfunded liability right now as a city. We need to look at that more seriously and be more proactive at looking at how we're going to pay that. We're responsible to our constituents to make sure that we take care of that, and also to our staff and our public safety officers who take care of us, to make sure that that money's there for them when they're ready to retire. And so what I'm suggesting is that we put off adding additional staffing for a period of time. I think the sheet says there's 3 different positions. The Crown Valley Community Center is not proposed to open until March of 2020. So hiring a full-time coordinator, we could, as on July 1st of 19 seems a little bit early, so I'm proposing maybe 10/1, and then another full-time coordinator on 3/1 instead of 1/1, and another full-time coordinator on 7/1, which would take us into the fiscal year of 2021, and that would help us slow down on the additional pension liability, operating costs, and kind of help us catch up a little bit. We don't have the revenue resources to continue to spend like this and stay a debt-free city at this point. We could change once all of these services are open and we do a fee study, but right now it would be fiscally prudent for us to kind of consider these. So those are my recommendations.
just to be clear, those are found on the, I think, the last page of one of your handouts.
Yes.
Split into
Yeah, they're in the
two
red
columns.
folder,
Okay.
correct, thank you. They're in the red
It's,
folder.
Well, it starts off, it says, yeah, black bars, and on the very last page, there's apparently a new sheet that's
Right.
broken in half between CIP and operating budget.
Yeah.
And she's proposing a 6.2% reduction in CIP for the year and a 0.2% in operating budget, which are detailed there, for about $81,000.
And the other thing that I would like to recommend that we do is we just approved our policies and procedures in April. There's an updated financial policy that Mr. Erlinson alluded to. I'd like for us to postpone approving that, moving it to our next meeting, and allowing Mr. Erlinson to take some time to also add some kind of a policy for how we're going to achieve our pension liability. Right now, we're only in our budget. We have $500,000 in there, which is what's mandated by the state for us to meet that. If we do that, we're 15, 16 years out before we meet that without adding any new staff. So I think it would be prudent to have something in our financial policy that addresses that too.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Councilwoman Genovese.
Okay, well, I'll go with the last item first.
Okay.
So, and that's addressing the pension liability. So, actually, I believe, Director Erlinson, that your recommendation was to take us back to what our financial reserve policy was prior to setting aside the funds for Crown Valley Park.
That's correct.
Yes, so that's really not in regards to pensions. That's in regards to the city's general reserve policy. And last year, we started looking at our pension liability, and we did a study. And it was at that time, we were looking at funding our own, pre-funding our own pension trust. And we had to look at that because if we went into the CalPERS and did that, it would have gone into a pool because of the size of our city, because we're a small city, and there's no sense for us to take our taxpayers' dollars and pre-fund a pension pool for everybody else. So we looked at that, but at the same time as we were coming towards the end of the study, then CalPERS said, well, they're looking at the same thing too. So we thought that might be more fiscally prudent, is to go with the CalPERS plan. And I understand right now there's some legislation that should be refining that, and we should have that information, but maybe the end of summer, beginning of fall. And that is something that this council has looked at for quite a while. So that is on our radar. So if you could keep us apprised of the status of that, Director Erlinson, we would appreciate it, because you know that's a great concern to us. One thing that I had brought up at the last meeting, and I just ask that you and the IBNA committee continue to monitor the interest rate. That's something that I thought it was a little bit high in here, and especially in beginning of June, we're looking at the May numbers, and on the 10-year yield, it was went down 38 basis points, which is the largest decline in 4 years. So that's kind of baffling to everybody. Why is that happening? Also, the LIBOR is trending down. So we just want to be sure that we are staying on top of what this financial assumption is in our budget. So I'd appreciate if you and the IBNA committee can continue to monitor that.
We will be on it.
Okay, thank you. Question for Director Giglio, and that is, and please remind me of the answer because I know we have talked about this before, and that is the need for the restroom renovation. Why is it that we need to do that now?
When Sea Country Center was renovated, we have the brand new bathrooms on one side of the building. The other side of the building was not touched. So aesthetically, it does not look great. While it is functional, but there are ADA issues with that side as well. And I could probably ask you to chime in a little bit more on what those ADA concerns are, but there are just from looking at it, there are holes in the sink. There are things that do not look nice. People choose not to use those restrooms. They choose to walk to the complete other side of the building to avoid using them. So while they are functional, there are definitely improvements that can be made there. And it just doesn't meet the standard of the rest of the building, but there are ADA concerns as well.
Okay, well, and I know, and most of the activities taking place on the other side of the building where the newer restrooms are. I guess to me, there's a difference between aesthetics and whether or not it's ADA compliant. And, you know, is it a safety issue? Is it not complying with ADA? Or just we would like a nicer looking restroom? If someone could please answer that.
A council member, Janaway, I can confirm we have done an ADA inspection of the restroom. There's a number of issues. I think we counted a total of 36. Has to do with different heights of the features in the restroom and handlebars and door handles and how you open the doors. The list is long. This is very common with construction from a number of years ago to not meet any current standards. I do believe that combined with just the undesirability of the look of the bathroom is probably generating a lot of the complaints in Sea Country. Those two things combined was why the item was put back on for council consideration.
Okay, because I know this had come to us about mid-year, and we sent it back. And I just, again, I guess I'm not really convinced that we need to take care of that restroom right now when we're looking at other things in the budget. But what I would like the council, though, to reconsider is the outdoor fitness park. There was a lot of talk today at the State of the City on how our city plans for the future. And that's what we're doing with the outdoor fitness park and the funding for it. And need to understand that we are saving money. We are not spending the money, we are saving it for the future. And then when it is time to build the park, the funds will be there, just like we've done everything else in our city with our city hall and with Crown Valley Park. But if we don't save for it, then when we have a great need for it, we won't have the funds, or we will have to go into debt, or we will not be able to build something that our residents and our taxpayers deserve. Now, we know that this population, this segment is growing, and we have, over 20 parks in our city that the playground equipment is for 2 to 5 year olds and 5 to 10 year olds. We don't have an outdoor fitness area like this with the equipment for adults to use for mobility, for socialization. So we're not asking to spend the money now, but I would suggest we go back and we set aside the funds as we had been doing so that we can keep up with the plan that we've established in Laguna Niguel of the way that we save for major capital improvement projects.
Okay, anything else? We'll come back to you in just a second. Councilman Menegar?
Thank you. Well, I have a basic fundamental question for our Director of Finance. It is my understanding, according to our revised policy dated April 2019 and the initial one back in 2004, we have to have reserves in our bank account equal or more than 50% of the upcoming fiscal year for the operating expenses. Now, the numbers that I have, which is the same as you presented to us last month, as well as the first time that I looked at the budget packet, is $22 million, 22.6 to be exact. Based on your professional opinion, we don't have the exact numbers yet. By the end of this month, by the end of June 2019, how much would be our potential reserves in the bank?
For the economic contingency
For the
reserve.
economic.
Based on my reporting to the council at mid-year and where I thought we would end up on a general fund basis, I would estimate right now probably about 21.7 million, give or take, maybe $500,000 on either end, but probably closer to 21.7, 22 million.
So then, to paraphrase my statement for our city attorney, so legally speaking, we're going to be okay based on the established policies of the city that for the upcoming year, we are going to be maintaining the cash reserves of 50% and more of the upcoming operating budget, operating plus CIP, obviously.
As long as the math works out to be that being obviously 50% of your
That's right.
operating budget. So
That's right.
if, and it's 50% of the annual general fund operating expenditures. So if I do the math right, I believe that would be 43.4 million is what would be the cap if you just have 21.7 million in that reserve. And if you meet that, you will be in compliance with your policy. If you're not in compliance with your policy.
Then I go back to our Director of Finance. You've been here for so many years based on your personal projections and knowledge and information you have from the financial world. You think that it's prudent that we're going to achieve that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Now, with regard to there was a discussion on one of the projects to do renovation of the old restrooms in the Sea Countries facilities. Well, number one, if a federal agency or state agency would be ADA audit this great city, we're going to be in violation of that. As Director Scott mentioned, there are 36 numbers they have to meet. By the way, there are a lot of cities in Los Angeles County that were audited by either state or federal agencies. They were not in compliance. They had to pay a lot of money just for not being compliant or not to be in conformance of what the U.S. Congress back in, 1993 came up with the ADA laws. So we most likely, as a professional engineer, I can say I'm 80% certain that we are not in compliance of the federal and state requirements. In conclusion, I cannot take that item away from this year's budget recommendation and postpone it to the next year because I look at pros and cons of that decision. The cons would be far greater than pros. Therefore, for a city to pay penalties to the U.S. government or a state agency, to me, that's not acceptable. Therefore, the way it has been presented, I'm 100% in favor of that. And that's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, we have several comments here. Director Scott, are you in agreement? Can you confirm what Councilmember Menegar was saying?
I will couch it that I'm not the ADA expert for the city. I do rely on the building department a great extent to look at the fine details of our facilities. But in general, if we were to receive an ADA complaint about one of our facilities, we are obligated to have some sort of a program in place to make overall improvements. Those complaints can come from any number of places, from a resident, even from a non-resident or an advocacy group. So having these kinds of projects in place helps the city comply with the transition plan that we are as a local government required to have in place.
Yeah. Well, and I do agree with that. I mean, I do note as a counterpoint that we do have ADA compliant restrooms in the facility itself if that was a need, which I realize isn't, I think the standard is readily achievable, and I haven't looked at those facilities and I've run the tape on it, but if we've done an audit on those and we know they're out of compliance, that's not terribly surprising given the timing of the building. It's been on, from my standpoint, that's been on our radar off and on, and the actual knowing about the violation and not correcting the violation is where the compliance on the violation comes into play. So now that it's been flagged, my inclination is to go ahead and authorize the improvement, get that done, and to make sure that it's taken care of. If that was something that we've been unaware of and we was flagged, I'd have a different opinion on that. But now that it's been flagged, I think our council would agree that it's probably the prudent thing. It is readily achievable. It's sitting on the agenda in front of us, and there's money in the bank to do it. So that's something that we can do. So my inclination on that one issue would be to move forward with that one. I know that there were other questions, though, so let me go back to Councilwoman Raines and let you follow up.
So Jackie, I know you have a lot of backlogged CIPs, and is there any other one that we could substitute for this one out of the 10 that you have identified that were backlogged? That might help us in determining that. And while you're doing that, I have another question. Does every building have to have every restroom be ADA compliant? Does anyone know the answer to that?
Over time, you're supposed to have a plan to bring yourself into compliance, and normally it's to be sequenced in over time. For example, there are other public facilities, for instance, sidewalks that may not all have the appropriate curb cuts, but if you have a plan to implement that over time, that will be sufficient.
So if we moved it into the CIP budget for 2020, 2021, as long as we had a plan to address it, then we're in compliance.
I believe Ms. Bell would like to comment.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I worked with the CJPA to obtain a grant to do the study of the city's programs and the city's facilities. And over this last fall, they actually came out and did the inspection for the city facilities. So the information that we have from their inspections is relatively new. And what City Attorney Ennis indicated to you is exactly correct. That as long as you're working on trying to cure the defects as it relates to ADA compliance, then you're in good shape. However, as Councilmember Minigar has pointed out, there are a number of agencies, particularly those that receive Caltrans grants, that were audited, and we're having to pay back not just money for the ADA improvements, but also some of the Caltrans funds that were received. So there are a lot of risks and a lot of uncertainty in ADA, but the main point is that you're making progress. And so in this city, we're fairly new, but despite the fact that we're fairly new, these buildings that we have, sidewalks that we have that are older, the older they are, the more likely they are to be out of compliance because the standards have changed over time. So we need to be showing and demonstrating that we're making a good effort, and we will have more information for you in the upcoming next year budget. But for this particular item, as you've mentioned, Mayor Jennings, we've known about the restroom for quite some time. There are a number of issues with that restroom, both on the male and the female side, that make it out of ADA compliance. And knowing that information and knowing the fact that we've known about it for some time is not to our favor to ignore it.
Yeah, in my preference on that would be, because it is in our senior center, accessibility in that center is particularly important. So we're not talking about just some restroom in town. This is actually a restroom in a facility where access is somewhat heightenedly important. So there are times when fiscal prudence is warranted, and there are times when doing the right thing is warranted. And I think this is one of those expenses we should leave on a budget.
And I'd just like to add, just a couple of months ago, we added door openers at Sea Country for handicap accessibility out into the patio area. So we are making improvements at Sea Country Senior Center for exactly the reasons that you've pointed out, that it is heavily used by those that can really benefit from the improvements that we can make for accessibility.
I think that's fair. Was there another follow-up on that one point?
Well, no, I was just wondering if Director Scott had any other backlogged projects that we might be able to substitute for that, because I do agree, now that I'm aware of the ADA compliance issues, that we should take care of that.
Thank you, Councilmember Raines. The capital improvement program that's proposed in the fiscal year 1920, it does serve a broad base of stakeholders throughout the city, including the interests of our city council and a lot of community groups. There isn't any one particular project that I could point out and say this would be something we could easily delay without somehow not serving the interest of the stakeholders. I would like to maybe provide a little bit of information about the two other projects that you highlighted for possible delay. The Crown Valley Park soccer field synthetic turf replacement. Staff has examined the turf at that particular field, and it was installed in 2012, and the lifespan of these synthetic fields are about 8 years. If we replace it in 2020 through the funding of the CIP, that'll be the 8-year lifespan that we've experienced on our synthetic fields. We did go out and look at the materials. Since it was installed, the green synthetic grass and the crumb rubber that is essential to the overall thickness of the field and the functionality of the field is about 50% gone. So in the next year, that's going to continue to deteriorate and will into the future until it's no longer a usable field. So we do recommend that we continue to stay on the 8-year cycle program for those fields. The city landscape wall program, I've had a couple HOAs and residents reach out to the city, claim that there's a wall that belongs to the city. I've looked into it, found that it wasn't a city wall, and have had to negotiate and sort of work with that group on a case-by-case basis. These requests, I hear more and more complaints and requests. I expect more, and this request is to put a program together so that the city is prepared to maintain the walls that we do have and also respond to the requests that are coming in from the homeowners associations as well. I hope that information will help you in your discussions.
Mr. Erlandson, can you tell me how much of the budget has appropriated funds that are moving forward from this budget year till next budget year that still haven't even been started in the CIP budget?
Not started. That would be the status of the projects. I would probably have to ask Director Scott about, but I can tell you that the projected carryover balance, that's the 18-19 estimated carryover, we're projecting $33 million in carryover. That's across all funds. However, about $17 million of that amount relates directly to the Crown Valley Park improvements. So it's probably about $16 million in other projects that are in various stages of construction or design or.
Thank you. So my point I think that I'm trying to make is we have carryover money from appropriated projects that haven't even been started. So putting something on hold for this fiscal year while we take care of what we already have appropriated and completing those projects, I think would be the fiscally prudent thing to do.
Was there another, Mayor Pro Tem, did you have something you wanted? Yeah, go ahead.
I completely understand where you're coming from. I think you also have to look at the costs. And every year, the price of construction, the price of materials go up. I mean, if you look at steel or whatever it may be, it's going up 20 to 25%. I know with OCTA, you know, you look at something and you're like, all right, the price is there, but sometimes it pays to actually do it now because then you get it locked in and you're getting that price instead of knowing you're going to have to be paying additional down there. So that's just one of them. And I did have a question in regards to staffing. The coordinators, could you tell me what those 3 coordinator positions would be doing, please?
So the coordinator that we're proposing to hire in July, that's someone we'd bring on, and they would start building the back end of our registration system for our new facility. They'd also be taking off some of the front desk duties from our administrative secretary, who would be working on our facilities use policy and fee study. So it's kind of all the positions. It's a trickle-down effect. We're rearranging job assignments so that we can have more availability to get work done to get the building open. So that person will be running the front desk, and so they're learning the operation of Crown Valley Park as well as our other facilities and getting consistent so that when we open the building, they are ready to go and take over the operations. The the second and third coordinators, one of them, the ones in January, one of them would be for facility rentals. So we'd be bringing them in January. The building is expected to open late February, early March. And so they'd be working with our person at Sea Country who's currently doing rentals for City Hall and for Sea Country, and getting consistent, getting on board, and making sure they can start taking those rentals the minute we open the door. And the other coordinator would be working with youth and teens, because we have a supervisor now that's going to have to oversee the building responsibilities. That youth and teens person, or the youth and teens section, is going to be taking on more special events and other activities that they haven't done before. We're also looking at the expansion of our summer day camps from 8 to 10 weeks, and inclusive programming. So there are some new activities that come along that would be supported by that position.
In regards to these three positions, what would be your priority? And I'm not saying that you wouldn't get all three of them, just, to make sure that operations are moving. And I understand, again, when you're looking at, I'm looking at youth and teens, that's something that could come in a little bit later. However, you also have to look at, again, you have facility rentals. Again, doing this is you usually tend to rent these things out. I don't know if the person that's doing Sea Country right now could actually take, and start doing this as well, because the sooner the better. Again, a lot of these places, if you want to do big events, you want to do weddings, they're going to start booking in August. And that's money, and the last thing you want to do is start at a certain time, and all of a sudden you've completely lost 6 months. Spring's gone, nobody wants it at that point then, and that's revenue, and trying to figure out how much revenue. And that was a question, because we still didn't know what's the revenue. I think if we knew what kind of money that we could be losing by doing this compared to what the cost of the position is, and if that would equal out, or at least equal out, if not go past it, then it justifies it. It's hard to look at it not knowing what kind of fees we could be missing out on, or revenue, to make a reason for having this position at that time. Because I'm not saying it's not, but I don't know what to compare it to.
Right. I understand the concern. Obviously, the priority would be to bring in the coordinator to run the front desk operations at the center. That's something we need to start the work soon so that we can be ready to open the doors. We don't want to open the doors and then be figuring out how to schedule the rooms and all these activities that we're expected to do. Now we can't do that because it's not even set up in the back end of our system. So that July position is definitely our priority. The facility rentals, again, we can do the best we can with booking the smaller events. The larger events do take a lot of time. The Sea Country coordinator is not just a coordinator for special events, or for rentals. She's also doing special events and has other activities that are on her plate. So to throw on all of the rentals would be a huge undertaking.
Is it possible to have a part-time position for that as they start coming in, until we actually are marketing and advertising this place, and they can just do part-time and then start, concentrating on that alone and doing tours and what have you, and not need a full-time person at that time?
Obviously,
maybe hire them as part-time, going, great, when we hit this point, we're going to need you full-time.
We can certainly do that. Just what's been demonstrated at Sea Country, it does take a significant amount of time. You're also looking at consistency. If you don't have part-time employees, if you can only work them under 20 hours a week, you don't have that consistency to meet with rental patrons, and then the responsibilities again fall on your full-time staff that are already tapped out with their duties. So we'll do the best we can with whatever we get. We're grateful for anything that we get. We've put a lot of time and thought into these positions, and it's still pretty bare bones what we're requesting. We're not asking for a ton of people, and we're looking, everything plays into a part of job responsibilities being shifted around. So again, we'll do the best we can with it, but this is our best thought of what it's going to take to get the facility up and going, and also meet the needs and expectations of the community.
Well, and I appreciate that, and you guys have always been good stewards. You've never taken advantage of the system. We have a very lean and mean staff here, and we always have, so I wouldn't even consider that. I think we're just trying to get a feel for a little bit better understanding of what it is that we need and why we need it, just like the bathrooms and the ADA, and this gives us more information, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I wanted to take a moment to comment on some of these things. My sense is, and I first of all want to thank everyone for, especially Councilman Raines, for opening the discussion of being fiscally responsible and reminding us of our obligations and trying to find ways to do that. That is certainly the sentiment of everyone on the dais. I've known you all for a while now, and I know how you think, and I appreciate that. This budget is a reflection of being fiscally conservative. This is what it looks like if all governments were as prudent as what we're seeing here. I think it'd be fine. Well, my takeaway from this is that we are in a transition year. We're going from a year of extraordinarily high cost on finishing up the culmination of many tens of millions of dollars worth of CIP projects on Crown Valley Park, our roads, our fields, and other things. We have known for a long time what our needs were at the new Crown Valley Park building. We knew that there were going to be people that needed to be brought on board. I told you at the budget workshop, and I'll repeat it now, I am surprised that it's only 3 people. I frankly expected 5, which isn't to say I'm inviting it, but I did expect there to be a full complement of people that would be required for that. It's a massive building. It's a big undertaking. It's a new direction for the city. It will require additional staff. And as I look at the $81,904 that we're talking about here, it is statistically interesting but not significant compared to the rest of the budget. And what I very much want to happen is when the new park building opens up, that it is opened up in a first-class, fully operational, highly functioning, no gaps way. And if that is a charge then to Parks and Rec to get it right the first time and make sure that I want our fee study done quickly. I would love to have that person starting to book things early. We had this conversation earlier. I think it's okay that we know the square footage of the space, and if we know it's open January or July 1st, then we start booking 2 weeks after that to start accommodating it and plan on that so that we can start getting some fees back and put those people to work. And that's going to free up time to do better services for the people that are there. So my point being is that I love this discussion. It's the right discussion always to have. This is a year where I think we need to approve the budget like we approved it. We've been through this. We've scoured it pretty hard. And I love the tweaks around the corners, but it doesn't move too many needles. What I would suggest, though, is that at mid-year, we do a deep dive on how right we were on the projections, because I do agree with the interest rates that there's a lot of assumptions built into this, and the economy is doing fantastic, but interest rates are an anomaly in that great economy, so we don't know yet what that means. But I'd like to do that. And then for next year, when we're planning our budget for 2020, 2021, that we acknowledge at the outset that we are in a new world, that we are not in the building of Laguna Niguel phase. We are in the enjoying Laguna Niguel and accommodating and paying for it and trying to, do something going forward, that we acknowledge that we need to have a period of lean years to save back our reserves, to build up where we were, and frankly, we're very, very close right there. I mean, we've grown accustomed to having $80-something million in the bank, and it does sound good, but we say all the time we're not the First National Bank of Laguna Niguel. It is our job to make sure that these funds are deployed for the residents and to make sure that it's nice, or we should give it back, is my opinion. So I think our budget is good. I don't have any changes. I appreciate all the suggestions, but I would leave them in place. I think there are arguments on all the numbers that are on each of these pages about why we should not go in that direction to make these reductions. But I do feel very strongly, and I will be advocating next year when the time comes, is that that's when lean and mean starts, is when the time comes to get back to saving the funds, because we need to do that, and that's the right thing to do, and people in our past have done that, and it's now time to do that. So that's my recommendation. I hear some consensus on that, but not exactly all of it, so I know that there was another comment, Councilwoman Genoway.
I have a question, if I can ask through my chattering teeth. It's so cold here.
The first night I've been to council meeting where it's comfortable in here. I love it.
No, it's freezing up here. I just have a question, and Director Giglio, if you could please clarify, because I thought we were having to go outside, because it wasn't done, to go outside for the fee study. And now you said one of the positions, someone will be moved. that someone on our staff will be doing the facility use policy and fee study. So are we no longer going outside to have that fee study done?
The facilities use policy is a separate portion. The fee study is incorporated into it, but the facilities use policy is actually how we operate in all of our facilities.
Right, but you said the person would also be doing the fee study.
So, okay, they'd be helping with the facilities use policy, but it does incorporate the fee study. So when that input is received, they are the ones.
Okay. Gosh, I thought we were saving money somewhere.
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you for clarifying.
Great thought. Appreciate the thought.
I know.
Well, let me ask: Are there any other suggestions, comments, changes, revisions that we haven't gone through?
I just
Councilwoman
have one
Raines.
final comment.
Yes,
One of the
please.
reasons why our budget is the way it is because of state mandated funding that we had to fund this year. And our state is mandating more and more things, and we have no control over that. So if you continue, I cannot move forward with this budget the way it is because of the uncertainty of mandates. SB 50 is going to be back up in January, and it could pass while we're sitting here in this fiscal budget, and it could affect us. So I cannot support a budget like this.
Okay. You'll get me concurring all day long on unfunded mandates. I completely agree. Any other comments? All right. Is there beyond that, is there a motion to approve the budget?
I move to approve. I'd like to make an amendment to the budget.
I need to hear the motion then.
Okay, is it written in here?
And
Or I
Mr.
move
Mayor, you might want to look at the recommendation section on page 4 of the staff report. There's a series of actions you're asked to take, and you may want to take them separately and in the order in which they're presented, which would be, for example, item C is to receive and file the 5-year capital improvement program for fiscal years 2020, 2024. That would be
Okay.
the logical first action.
That's fine. Is there a motion then on the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 20 through 2024? I would make that motion.
Okay, and I'd like to make an amendment to the capital improvement program.
You have an amendment to my motion? What is that?
The amendment is to reinstate the savings for the outdoor fitness park in the amount of $250,000.
Is there a second for that amendment? Hearing none, then the amendment fails for lack of a second. The standing motion then is to approve the CIP. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No,
Passes I'm sorry.
I do not approve.
Okay, so it's 4-1 with Councilwoman Raines voting against it. The next one is the adoption of the resolution number 2019-1286 approving final fiscal year 2019-2020 city operating budget and capital improvement program in the amount of $57,890,118.
Million.
Huh?
57.
Million, did I say thousand? I'm sorry, $57,890,118.
It's a long day.
So I need to move a comma, so thank you very much, Councilman Mendigar. Was that a motion, by the way? I saw your hand go.
I make the motion.
All right, there we go. We have a motion to approve.
Okay, I'd like to offer an amendment.
Please, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to reinstate the savings of the $250,000 for the outdoor fitness park.
All right, well, first of all, before you make an amendment, was there a second to Councilmember Mendigar?
Not yet, but I was expecting
Oh,
one.
I thought you.
So I was getting there. So moved by Councilmember Mendigar, seconded by Councilwoman Davies. There's a
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Davies. There you go. So now then, Councilwoman Genoway, you're back to you.
I'd like to amend that for the, let's see, need my glasses.
D.
For the D, 2019 to 2020 capital improvement program to reinstate the savings for the outdoor fitness park in the amount of $250,000.
All right, thank you. That's a friendly amendment. Is there a second for that amendment? Hearing none, it will fail for lack of a second. So all in favor of the original motion to adopt resolution 2019-1286 as stated for $57,890,118, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so we have 4 in favor, Councilwoman Raines against. Item number E is adopt resolution of 2019-1287, amending the salary schedules adopted by resolution number 1217, 1229, and 1218, 1254. Is there a motion to approve?
I second.
Mayor Pro Tem Davies moved and seconded by Councilmember Minigar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Councilmember Raines opposed. Last one is the adoption of resolution number 2019-1288, establishing the appropriation limit for the city of Laguna Niguel for the fiscal year at 2019-2020 at $224,301,456.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Genway, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Davies. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Did you vote in favor? I didn't see. Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, good. So that one passes unanimously. And the last one is the approval of the city's financial reserve policies. I'll make a motion to approve. No, that was the one right before it. So item number G, the city's financial reserves policy.
Dated April 2019, correct?
I think so. That's what I. Is that what you said, Steve?
That was the last revision date.
Okay, good. Then yes. Is that? I'll take that as a motion by
I make the
Councilman
motion.
Minigar. I'll second it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, very good. So with that, I believe that we are through our fiscal policy and our budget for 2019-2020. I will stop here only to say, my goodness, what an unbelievable undertaking by staff. I thank you all. This was a more robust policy process, than in years past, and it has come down to a much more information for the council to consider and to take into consideration as we approve it. And I want to thank the council as well for all of your efforts. That's on top of a 5-hour budget meeting where we look through this, and that was just summarizing all the work that you all had done. So thank you very much for that. As such, that was our last discussion item. We can now move on to council comments, and let me start to my left with Councilmember Minigar.
Thank you. Short to the point, during the last month, I attended so many different meetings as the chairman of the TCA in Irvine, and the last Wednesday night, I attended with Councilwoman Sandy Raines, the Traffic and Transportation Commission of this great city. With that, that's my report.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Genoway.
Hey, as the school year is coming to an end, we had some great activities with our youth committee. They had a fantastic music festival this year, and then the mayor and I had the youth committee interviews, selected, 11 students?
yeah.
So again, it's always invigorating and great when we talk to our high school students because the future is going to be in great hands. And on May 18th was the city's volunteer appreciation dinner. That's where we say thank you to the hundreds of volunteers that it takes to do all the fantastic programming that we have here in our city. And congratulations to John Ulrich, who's sitting in the back, the 2018 Laguna Niguel Citizen of the Year. So thank you for all the service you've provided to the residents of Laguna Niguel. We always see you all over town, and you always say yes, so thank you, John. And today was the State of the City, so congratulations to the mayor on a fantastic State of the City, and thank you to staff. That was an excellent program, so thank you for everyone who had part in it. And as you all heard earlier this evening, this month is the 50th anniversary of the Laguna Niguel Women's Club. They're going to be having a Golden Jubilee anniversary luncheon on June 15th. We will have color guard from the Orange County Fire Authority, so thank you. We will have a soloist there, and we will have a great presentation of Laguna Niguel through the decades with the Women's Club. It'll be a lot of fun. If anyone wants tickets to come, I may know someone who can get you some, so see me. And that is all, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Raines.
I attended a legislative committee meeting, and there was a couple bills that I just wanted to bring to attention. AB 1356 was to another mandate that wanted to create local jurisdictions to allow cannabis activity. So for every alcohol license you had in the city, they wanted you to be able to open a cannabis store. And it has failed, and it's been, so that's a good thing. We don't have to worry about that. The other thing was that SB 50, which is the housing bill to mandate more affordable housing and high-density housing. It has been put aside, but it will be coming back up to committee in January, and is believed that it will pass in January with a few amendments. So we will be having some other mandates to look forward to. On Memorial Day, I attended our city's Memorial Day ceremony that was held by the American Legion Post 281. It was very lovely, and Council Member Laurie Elaine Genoway and Mayor Pro Tem Laurie Davies were in attendance. It was a lovely event. And June 14th is Flag Day, so make sure you get your flags out. Thank you.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem Davies.
I had an opportunity to go to Sea Country for the Tech Tutors graduation end of the year. I have to tell you, that is such an incredible program. The seniors, they love it as much as the young kids do, and it's great to see the interaction there. And you can just see that there's such love in between them. And there were a lot. I was amazed. I think there were like 20-some kids there doing that. So this is such a great program, and I know John Ulrich was one of them that actually got that moving, being a senior committee. Thank you. I mean, it just really was enlightening. It was great to see. I have great news in regards to the Housing Trust Fund board members. That's something that we did go ahead and opt in. That's helping doing a GPA and getting funding together as a county. And when it was regarding to the board members, we were able to get our mayor voted in for the 60,000 and over. And so he basically won over, I think it was 9 other cities. We're able to vote in Dana Point for the 60,000 and under. And we also have Mission Viejo. They took the 3 largest cities in the different spas. So that was Anaheim, I think, was in the central, Garden Grove was in the north, and Mission Viejo was in the south. So with regarding this board, we have 70% of the council members that are on this board are represented by our South County. So to me, that's great, and I want to thank you for taking that on. It's, you know, that's something very important. I think it shows that we do care and that we're moving forward on that. And we'll also, though, have very good oversight, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted the mayor to be on there. He's got 5 years still ahead of him, and making sure that the county doesn't, reach over what they need to. That's very important. That's always been one of the concerns, that the county would come in and take this. So knowing that we have him in there with his experience, I think we're in good hands. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. That is a high honor. We've talked about the Housing Trust for so long. It came out of SB 54 last year. And really our position was, and my position to the other mayors in the city on the city selection committee was, is that we have to keep the county in check. We need to make sure the county does what the county is supposed to do, and we as cities are there to do what we're supposed to do. And we have compassion built into that process, and we will follow it to the letter of the law and make sure that the bylaws are approved correctly and that mission creep doesn't happen on that particular JPA, which is, I think is one of the elements of good governance. I did want to let the rest of the council know, Mayor Pro Tem Davies, Community Development Director Orduña, and I spent really, I guess, a total of 4 days. We were there. I think Mayor Pro Tem Davies was one less, but we were in Las Vegas for the ICSC conference, which is the International Shopping Center Conference. We met with a tremendous number of people, the sole focus of which is to try to fill up vacant pads in Laguna, Niguel. Fascinating groups. There must have been 40,000 people there. I mean, the Las Vegas Convention Center was chock full of people. We were averaging, 6 or 8 miles a day on our step counter. So we were hoofing it all over the place. But it was a very, very good event to attend, very robust. Not only did we learn a lot, but we actually sat down with some people, and they broker on behalf of these restaurants and retail and other things. And we met with the people that are brokers currently for our open centers and heard from them, got direct feedback from the people that are trying to fill the spaces on what we need and what they're encountering. So it was a great event. I just want to say thank you both for taking the time out of your busy schedules to do that. So Appreciate that. And let's go around the room. Start with Chief McDaniel.
Thank you, Mayor. Today, our deputies were joined by several agencies, including Riverside County, Buena Park, Brea, and Irvine PD, in a regional commercial enforcement checkpoint on Crown Valley Parkway. Of the 53 large vehicles stopped, roughly 2/3 of those were cited for some violation, whether that be overweight, ineffective braking, or driver's license enforcement. So really, it's an excellent program. I appreciate your support in our commercial enforcement. Obviously, these vehicles can do severe damage if we don't maintain what we're doing with these. So I want to thank Deputy Robbins, who coordinated that program today, and it was very successful. That's all I have.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and thank you to all our sister cities who brought out their police enforcement as well. I don't look at 2/3 of violations as any success record, so let the word go forth that that's not acceptable. We'll keep doing that. So thank you very much, Chief. A very busy man tonight, Steve Erlandson. So anything else to report?
Nothing else to report.
That's great. Thank you much for all your efforts again. City Attorney Ennis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to report that last month I attended the spring conference of the League of California City Attorney's Department, and we learned updates on land use, CEQA, and general litigation, Brown Act, small wireless facilities, regulation of scooters, and homeless issues.
I think you could have taught some of those programs.
In fact, one of my colleagues did.
Good. I knew that. All right. Chief Contreras. I just touched wood just in case, so I hope that's true. Thank you very much for that, Chief, and thank you for your presentations earlier again tonight. I'm excited about this. I'm going to let Community Development Director Orduña spill some beans for us, so go get them.
We are very excited to announce that the County Board of Supervisors unanimously voted today to approve an option agreement and ground lease for redevelopment of the former county courthouse site. They have selected the developers. Yes, finally, we're moving forward. So
I now take back everything I said about them.
They have selected developers Burnham Ward and Saris Regis, who have a top-notch list of projects that they have completed and are working on in the area. So we're off to a good start there, and we're looking for a development application to be submitted to the city in the next few days. And the developer is looking to hold an introductory meeting to roll the project out before the community. So a long way to go, certainly environmental review and the typical process that we have to do, but we feel things are heading in the right direction. And just one other item, I'd like to offer my appreciation to the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem on attending ICSC with me. As mentioned, it was quite a trek, but I think it was worth it in support of our business community. So thank you for that.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That is fantastic news. It is a very long time coming, but that's a neat project. I think all the council members have now seen it, and we're excited to show it to the Planning Commission and then ultimately to the city and get all the city feedback on it. So that is great news, and we'll be moving quickly on our side to make sure it stays on track. City Clerk Gomez.
Committee vacancy. This Thursday at 5 o'clock is the deadline to accept applications. So if anyone is interested, please go ahead and submit your application. We have an application online that can be printed out, and just bring it into City Hall by Thursday at 5 o'clock to have an opportunity to serve on the Military Support Committee. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Have you gotten any applications?
No.
Okay, so we have one spot open, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, that's great. Parks and Rec Director Giglio.
Thank you, Mayor. The Laguna Niguel Aquatic Center will open on June 17th, and we will have swim lessons available at the pool, and that's a great opportunity for water safety for kids. So we encourage everyone to sign up for those. We still have about 7 to 8 more months of construction, and the schedule is subject to change with the pool. So we ask for everyone's patience, and we will do our best to keep it open at all times, but we are very excited. This is a giant step forward for all of us. And our summer day camps are going to begin on June 17th. We already have some weeks that are full, so we encourage registration as soon as possible so people have the opportunity for that. And other than that, we are training staff. We have a fresh new crop of staff in, and we are very eager to move forward with some great summer activities. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Interim Deputy City Manager Bell. There we go. Sorry.
Nothing tonight.
Tripping
Thank
all
you.
over it. Great, thank you. Director Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I am excited to announce that the City of Laguna Niguel is going to be holding the first community outreach meeting related to the Pooch Park and the design concepts Thursday, June 27th at 6 p.m. at the Sea Country Senior and Community Center in the Pine Room. This meeting is to invite the public to provide input and ideas about what interests they have in features and improvements at the park. This will be the first of 2 meetings, and there's more information on the city's website as well as information on how to RSVP, so we make sure we have enough chairs for everybody.
Great, fantastic, thank you.
I don't think they're allowed in the
No,
facility.
bring your dogs to
but-
Sea Country, that's right. That's excellent note. Well, thank you everyone for that, and thank you for a slightly longer city council meeting tonight. We appreciate all the work on that. Wanted to adjourn tonight our regular city council meeting in memory of the Honorable Stephen Swartz, the mayor of City of the San Clemente, who passed away suddenly recently. Mayor Swartz was a community leader, a Rotarian, and volunteer for many years in his city, and he will be missed by many, especially those who served us with him here on regional boards and other things in Laguna Niguel. So on behalf of the City Council and the 67,000 people of Laguna Niguel, we extend our most heartfelt condolences to the Swartz family and to the entire city of San Clemente. We are now adjourned at 9:15 in his honor. Thank you. Have a great evening.